Okay, so welcome to the afternoon session, which is on the theme of Northern Connections. Our first plenary, the plenary speaker for this session is Gerry Turpin, who, it's a real pleasure to welcome Gerry here today. Gerry leads the development of the Tropical Indigenous Ethnobotany Centre at the Australian Tropical Herbarium at James Cook University in Cairns. The ATH is a joint venture between James Cook University, CSIRO and the Queensland Government. Gerry's been employed by the Queensland Government for over 30 years. He participated in the Queensland Herbarium's Regional Ecosystem Survey and Vegetation Mapping project, including carrying out projects in the Channel Country in southwest Queensland for several years before transferring to the Australian Tropical Herbarium. In 2016, he was a member of the Indigenous Experts Roundtable reviewing Queensland's Biodiscovery Act 2004. The Roundtable recommended important changes which were adopted, and in September 2020, the Biodiscovery and Other Legislation Amendment 2020 reformed the Act to include legal protections for the use of First Nation people's traditional knowledge in biodiscovery to improve the alignment with international standards such as the Nagoya Protocol. Gerry's current work as a senior ethnobotanist entails travelling to Indigenous communities to engage and foster relationships and to record and document traditional plant knowledge. Gerry also acts as a bridge between Indigenous biocultural knowledge and Western science to bring researchers and other organisations to partner with traditional owner groups in collaborative research. And Gerry's talk is the Tropical Indigenous Ethnobotany Centre, Saving Ancient Biocultural Knowledge to Help Provide Solutions for Current Issues. Welcome, Gerry.
Thanks for that introduction. Also, thank Adrian for that welcome to country yesterday, and great welcome. I acknowledge the traditional owners of this region, and I pay my respects to the ancestors, elders, and all the Indigenous people that are here from different places, but also to the non-Indigenous. So just a bit of an outline of what I'm going to talk about. So my country, where I'm from, the Ethnobotany Centre, the database that we use, Indigenous biocultural knowledge, biodiscovery, and 3 current projects. So as is our custom, it's about firstly who we are rather than what we do. So that's my country, the Herbarium or Herbarium, west of the Atherton Tablelands, around Watsonville Irvine Bank, 350 square kilometres of native title, or the recognised area, and there's native title within that area there. We coexist with miners, pastoralists, and other people there as well, with private leases. I'm also connected to the Atherton Tablelands Indigenous groups there, so Wajunbata, Dingi and Nudgin on the Atherton Tablelands, and Kuka-Taipan on Cape York, so particularly the clan group Aliwa, which means Taipan. On that country we have several rare and threatened species, the Acacia purpurea petala, the only purple wattle in the world, Grevillea glossodina. We also have Prostanthras and other rare paper days as well. That plant there is from our country, Tephrosia turpinii, and that was named after me by the late Dr. Les Pedley. Kind of a slender, fragile little thing, just like me. So, as was mentioned in the introduction, I spent some time at the Queensland Herbarium. Was part of the Regional Ecosystem and Mapping project there. That's a channel country there, southwest Queensland, where I spent several years mapping there. You can see the contrast landscapes there. So one of my favourite places, that vegetation site on the dune, I did that one in world record time. So when I transferred from the Queensland Herbarium up to near my homelands, the Atherton Tablelands, so we started the Ethnobotany Centre, and we got together with a lot of the groups from there, other people that were interested in ethnobotany, and we just asked them what would they like in such a centre, and so and this is what they come up with. I don't know if you can see the symbol there, but they talk about education, justice, and businesses and all that kind of thing. That kind of a modern sense of that, the holistic knowledge where everything's connected. So in the past, all these things were connected, like justice, the law, L-O-O-E. So sometimes the law was biblical. If you did the wrong thing, it was fatal. Business there through the trading routes and song lines. Just can't read it at the moment. But in the centre there's the Indigenous groups coming together, working together and sharing knowledge and helping each other. And the main aim is to provide assistance to the custodians in recording, documenting, protecting, managing and maintaining their Indigenous biocultural knowledge. So all the information recorded is given back to the TOs, but if they don't have the capacity to store their own knowledge, we ask them if we can store it, and there's protocols around who can access their knowledge. The maintenance and preservation of Indigenous knowledge and cultural practice is urgent because we are losing our elders. So our activities are grouped up under 4 themes. So research, and because of the nature of our ethnobotany, sort of tentacles reach out in all areas. That one there was with on the left, land use, occupation mapping in the Whitsunday area with the Urubera and Quanjimal people, shared country. Aboriginal people don't normally get to be added into land use occupation. They don't get their perceptions heard. So this was one of the reasons for that project. But also they occupy the coastal areas. So we talked about climate change and explained that to them, and then they thought about what would happen to their midden sites and sacred places and bush tucker, bush medicine plants. So just help them to prepare for that event if it happens, like sea level rise or something like that. Other projects include medicinal plants projects. So initially we started with Southern Cross Uni in Lismore, National Institute of Complementary Medicine, Western Sydney University, and then at James Cook Uni, Institute of Tropical Health and Medicine, and Public Health, Medical and Veterinary Sciences. All the keen botanists probably already figured out the 2 species of black boys. The answer is Johnsonii, and the other's my cousin Steve. It's okay, look, I can say that. I got permission from Steve too, so. Training and education, so been part of the National Fire Workshop for a long time, so held workshops in there about plant ID and collection and vegetation data, site collection, things like that. Teaching locals, collection of weed identifications, a lot of groups are getting back land, through various means, native title, and some old cattle stations. So they're looking to manage that country, and they look for assistance in managing those countries. So they look for training and all that kind of thing. We talk to school kids about education and science, and even had requests from preschool as well. I take part in conferences such as this in different places, seminars and forums, to talk about Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous knowledge and Western science working together. Collation of existing data and collections, so a lot of hidden information in the archival materials, old botanical textbooks and journals, explorer journals, newspapers. So we go in there, look for information, get that out, put it into our database, and when we're working with the relevant groups, we give that information to them so that they can reinvigorate it back into their communities. This one example there through the Royal Society of Queensland Journal, 1907, the Botany of Irvine Bank. That's some plant names in our language. We've only got about 300 words left in our language, so that's an addition to our language. And then places like museums where this particular one, they contacted me and asked if I knew anything about this artefact. Just going through our databases, we found that it came from the Hugonia jenkinsii plant, where it grows these tendrils and they fashion a fish hook out of that, and the string is most likely made from the bark of a fig tree or a peanut tree. And then protection of intellectual and cultural knowledge. So big issue in the north. I'm not sure about other places, but it was a big issue in the north, and we provided a better understanding for traditional owners on how to design effective and efficient, free, prior and informed consent, mutually agreed terms. Some aren't even aware of, some of the elders, the older people aren't aware of the United Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the Convention on Biological Diversity, the Nagoya Protocol and the Biodiscovery Act, so we provide that information to them, informing traditional custodians of their rights, but also informing researchers of traditional custodians' rights as well. So biocultural knowledge is highly detained and complex and has survived accurately prior to colonisation for thousands of years, so over the millennia, just living in the environment, accumulating knowledge through climatic changes, environmental changes, and adapting with that, and storing that knowledge, within their minds, within the landscapes and songs and dances, without writing it down. And there's a book by Lynn Kelly, which talks about the memory code, how Aboriginal people or Indigenous people all over the world store their knowledge. We started off with this Excel spreadsheet database, just putting in the knowledge there, nearly 4,000 entries into that, but some species are repeated, and that's because the different groups use those species and they use it in a different way. We have used the Miramar database, so this was started by a TO from coastal New South Wales as a bush tucker database, but it's since morphed into a language database. And it's a good tool, pretty simple to use, and it's not connected to the internet, so there's no worries about knowledge being taken. You could upload photos, audio recordings of elders speaking language or saying the right names for plant names in our case, and documents as well. So, and it's a good tool for teaching young people about media, how to take videos of elders, edit videos and upload into the database, and kids are pretty, they're already in that sort of technology space, so they adapt it pretty quickly. With other applications, you can do brochures, word lists and different things. So what is Indigenous biocultural knowledge? So the Western language struggles with, how to describe Indigenous knowledge. So, you hear phrases like traditional ecological knowledge or Indigenous knowledge, ecological knowledge, but Christie calls it Aboriginal science, a mode of knowledge production which has evolved to allow human beings to fit into the ecology rather than outside of the ecology. So they were actually part of the furniture. But that changed since colonisation, when they were shifted off country and then separated from the environment. So we use the term Indigenous biocultural knowledge, knowledge that encompasses people, language, culture, and their relationship to the environment. So there's a link between culture and biodiversity. Biocultural diversity describes that link between the culture and diversity. So nature and culture is always considered separate, as opposed to Aboriginal people which consider the environment in themselves kind of one, and as part of that, the same environment. So they're intellects with similar evolutionary paths, mutual adaptation, and even co-evolution. There's a direct relationship between the loss of cultural diversity and the loss of biodiversity. So the biodiversity hotspots all around the world, they turn out to have been managed in some way by Indigenous people. Oops, backwards. My interest is IBK and Western science. Can they be integrated? No, because they're two different knowledge systems. Sorry about that. Two different knowledge systems. The holistic nature of Indigenous knowledge includes spirituality, history, cultural practices, social interaction, language and healing, and the Western science is simply, a systematic approach to answer questions. There are benefits, can enhance science as well. Just some instances where Indigenous knowledge has been used, so terrestrial burning, biodiversity. Down the bottom, even the myths and legends turn out to be true stories that's been handed down. For example, the volcanoes up in Cairns area, there's stories about that, and also the sea level rise where the Gimoi Dingi people used to walk out on the shelf, dry land. International obligations for biodiscovery. I only got 5 minutes left, so that's why I'm flying through. Human lands. I think you heard about the Nagoya Protocol this morning, so I'll fly through that. Just a content template that we use when we go collecting plants, just states our projects, what are we going to use, that's what we're going to do on country. If we collect plants, it's for research, there's no financial benefit or gain that's going to happen, and then we get this signature. Any research on biological material triggers the Queensland Act. What is biodiscovery? Any research on any biological material, whether it's plants, animals and fungi. And this was the biodiscovery legislation in which I was part of the roundtable in reviewing and making recommendations for changes, which has been accepted by the government. and just a better outcome for Indigenous people. The old one, there were loopholes in it, but now there's more legal protections for First Nations people and for not First Nations people themselves. You know, it's more of an understanding of what it's about, to protect their knowledge, ensure that biodiscovery occurs in an environmentally, cultural, sustainable manner, and that they can achieve their aspirations through biodiscovery, and that includes jobs, economic possibilities. Just our 3 current projects. The first one was with the University of Queensland. We call it a deadly solution. Deadly in Aboriginal language is awesome, not fatal as in the Western. So combining traditional knowledge and Western science for an Indigenous-led industry. Aboriginal people there's low percentage of Aboriginal people involved in the bush tucker industry, which is worth about 80-90 million a year, and they're not benefiting from their own knowledge. So this is about providing a kickstart for them. And there's the aims to discover and develop the potential new bush foods, beverages and ornamental plants. Novel root vegetables and things like that, so they're not competing with the wider community. Identification of plants, assistance with growing the plants, the food science from people. They analyse the plants for nutritional value. Business, blockchain, mixed reality, we have experts in that. That's beyond me. That business side of thing, that's why we need partners to help us. And our next steps say that food there looks pretty awesome, which I prepared using a kangaroo, crocodile, emu, fish with native herbs and spices. Quickly through this last one, discovering novel drugs leads for inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, from Aboriginal medicinal plants. So the Herbarium Biodiscovery Project was the first one, and we also included the Inangai people to do some exploratory analysis of the plants. Both communities had plants which showed really good promise, so we're continuing with that. There's our partners. Background, IBD, is gaining increasing recognition for its value in all sorts of things, including biodiscovery. Just talked about IBD, how it affects the world. Australians are particularly affected. The amount of money that it costs to the Australian health system. But the thing is that we're interested in is IBD is 8 to 30 times lower than non-Aboriginal people, and that's why we're targeting the anti-inflammatory plants, because we think, you know, it's because of their bush tucker and their bush medicine plants that helps them with that. Alternative medicine is used for that, but there's no data on that, and there's no cure for IBD. So with our oldest, we consider our knowledge the oldest living pharmacopoeia, and we are studying 3 Herbarium plants and 3 Inangai plants. This is a biodiscovery pathway that we went through. The first was the community, the engagement processes, making sure that they understand the jargon, particularly the legal jargon, and then making those agreements. Collection of plants, going out with the community, in the lab isolating, testing compounds, and then ongoing regular communication back and forward. And it may lead to, so one of our plants is leading to, we're going to patent one. We can't patent plants, but we can patent new compounds. There's some results from one of our plants with the help of our PhD students. So we've isolated 13 compounds, 3 new ones. 4 compounds formed good crystallisation, crystals. Anti-inflammatory activity of crude extracts and isolated compounds will be evaluated using PBMC's assays. And our community will name the new compound, so it could be after an elder or an Aboriginal name. In that project was my master's project, which I completed. So I was documenting the medicinal knowledge of our community. I've used 5 medicinal plants in that project, determined the major class of phytochemicals of crude extracts, and assess the toxicity, antioxidants and the anti-inflammatory properties of those selected plants. And it's important that toxicity is assessed first, because no point, using these plants to heal yourself when you're going to kill yourself at the same time. Just a paper that came out of that study, a review of medicinal plants in Queensland. Just note that it's published material, not the information that we've been collecting from the traditional owners. And then hopefully these other 2 papers with the Inangai and the Imbarbaram people published soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Gerry. We've got time for a couple of questions, if there's any questions from the room. I can see a couple over centre back.
How is the purple acacia going?
Sorry?
How is the purple acacia going?
So there has been some work done by other parties. It was difficult to propagate, but I think in the last few years I found a way to propagate the purple wattle. So we just have to work with those people so that they can come to the community and work with us and teach us how to do that stuff as well.
No more questions? I think Ollie's got one up the back there.
Thanks, Gerry. Great to see the presentation. Just thinking about what are some of the challenges that you're sort of seeing in the space for community, and maybe the opportunities that this kind of mob here would be able to support. Does that make sense?
Yeah, plenty of challenges, starting with engagement of the community. One of the things that funding bodies don't allow is prior engagement. So that kind of has to be done before you get the funding. And then once you get the funding, you can't use it for engagement. So, just work out ways on how you can work with the communities, and you probably can name it different things. So in one of the cases, we gave some funding to a community so that they can arrange the visit to country, attend conferences and things like that. So there are ways around it, but very difficult. One of the things too is they don't allow funding for the communities to understand the legal jargon. So communities have to find their own funding to consult with legal people to help them understand the contracts and things like that. So that's where our funding bodies need to change when we're working with traditional owners. And all the usual stuff, that happens when you're working with community. Time. Aboriginal people are busy themselves as well. Researchers in the universities are busy as well, so very hard to arrange those reciprocal visits where mob come into country or come into the union, do tours of the labs and understand what researchers do with their plants, but also for the researchers to go out in country to see the plants in their natural environment. And and also, learn about the culture of the Aboriginal people as well.
Thanks, Gerry. That was great.